Hey there, writing buddies. I'm Michael. Welcome back to my channel, Mr. Swain. Today's video, I'm going to be going over character design, specifically main characters. Since character design is kind of a big deal, I want to break it into two parts. And this first one, we're going to focus on the main characters and how my writing style really helps me build strong characters. If you watch my last video, you'll know that what I do in order to create my stories is what I call reverse engineering. So I create an endpoint first, some sort of plot at the very end where some sort of event occurs, whether it be a romance, whether it be a fantasy novel, whatever it is. I have my climax already in mind. I've already made that up. And now I'm going to go back to the start. I might dot a few more pivotal points in the story that I'm going to loosely connect. And then I go back to the beginning of the story and I start writing from there. The important part about me doing reverse engineering and having my character in mind, as far as already having that last part made up, is that the final sequence, the final climax of the story, will give me some information about this character that I'm just now creating. Now, the most important part that I get out of knowing where the character is going to end up at is their core traits. What brought them to the battle? What made them engage in whatever this conflict is that I've created? Core traits are what your character is founded on. There should be a few different core traits, but these are the traits that are going to actually, bring the character into conflict. These are what's going to, the character will actually stand up and defend these core traits, and they are willing to die on the hill for them, right? One of these core traits could be changed over time. So if, for me, when I have my ending already known to me, I might say, okay, he's going to end up this way, she's going to end up that way, whatever. And I want to change one of those core traits to something else, so that way I can, over the course of the story, I can, alter that. But for the most part, whatever their other core traits are that I might not change, those need to be present when I introduce the character at the beginning of the story. As a pantser, for the most part, because at this point I've already kind of done my plotter part of my writing style. Now that I'm going to go and just start writing the story, I'm just basically pantsing it the whole way through. At this point, I am designing the character as I go along. I have core traits, so I know kind of how this character needs to start off, but I am going to obviously build on that and flesh this character out, not just to me, but also to the reader. Now, I'm going to go over the top 5 things I think of whenever I'm building my character. Before I go into that, go ahead and leave a like down below if you're finding this helpful. The first thing is the world. The world is whatever the character really knows about. So, for instance, if it's a child, we might just be dealing with the inside of their house. They might also know their street. Older kids might know their neighborhood, so on and so forth, right? Until you get into characters who, for instance, like Han Solo from Star Wars, his world was actually the galaxy. He was able to planet hop, so he wasn't tied down to one planet, one city, right? He was all over the place. So whatever your character's maximum scope of travel kind of is, that's their world. That's what they are really interacting with on a daily basis. And you want to consider what that is going to be for this character and what they've already experienced before they come into the story. The second one is going to be the culture. So whatever culture the character grew up in, whatever culture they're in now, this is going to be kind of like the lens that they see the world through. So while the world is kind of just it is what it is, the culture is how they perceive it. It's what the world is filtered through for their understanding. It's how they come to learn about and understand the world. The third thing I always think about is going to be parents and guardians. With parents and guardians, you have to understand that their role in the upbringing of the character is going to be crafting that lens. They are the one who are instilling the culture on the child, right? They're the ones who are teaching them about the world. They're really crafting that culture for the child. So, one household could be very different from another household, even though they're in the exact same region of the world. They're next door neighbors. But because one has a different parenting style than the other, that can really change that cultural dynamic for the character as they're growing up. When it comes to the parent guardians, though, and we're also going to get into some more characters here in a second. When it comes to, understanding how these characters affected your main character that you're just building, don't go too deep. You never want to go super deep into these characters. They might not even really be in the story. They might only be referenced, or they might not be really referenced at all. It's just knowing how your character was raised, how they, lived their life before they came into your story currently. When I make a parent or guardian that is not really going to be in the story, or maybe they're there for just a very small bit, or they're just referenced, I really only ask myself, what did the parent do? I don't really go into more detail, because obviously you could just find yourself in this constant loop of like character building. So when it comes to parent and guardians, I ask myself, okay, if my main character, spilt a jug of milk as a kid, what is the parent's reaction? Are they, concerned for the child? Are they mad at the child? Are they, out of their mind? They start laughing about it or something like that, right? Like, what was their reaction? Now, why that was their reaction, like why they're mean and decided to be mad about it, why they're crazy and just started laughing hysterically, I don't answer that question unless I need to go deeper into that character. But I just need surface layer for this parent guardian while I'm building my main character. Okay, so you don't want to like go too far down the rabbit hole while you're answering some of these questions. It's just more of, what did my character have to deal with when it came to their parent guardian? So the fourth thing is going to be friends and siblings. They work a little differently, but they mainly serve the same function. Friends and siblings serve the function of kind of refining that lens of culture, right? So while the parents are crafting it, the siblings and friends who are also in that same culture, they are reacting to it as well. They're also growing up in it, and the main character that you're creating now is able to see how they dealt with it. How did they respond to the same information that the main character got? Main character feels a little weird about it, but their friend seems really happy about it, or their sibling hates it, right? Like, what are other people's reactions? So they are there to refine the cultural view. They're there to refine that lens and how the main character is going to see that. The fifth thing I think about is going to be stronger relationships / romances. The reason that I still keep these in mind is because romances are very powerful, right? They're very powerful in the emotion. They can lead to tragedies. They could lead to heartbreak. So, has our character ever dealt with a deeper relationship? Have they, did one end poorly for them? This is going to affect their other relationships, because they might say, well, look, I got really close to this one person, didn't turn out so well, and so now I'm not really going to get close to anyone else ever again. On the flip side of that, they might say, I've had a number of relationships, they've all been really good, they ended amicably, so, I don't have any qualms about getting into new relationships with other characters. And those kind of things can really dictate how a character reacts, responds to the outside influences. However, you want your character to be shy. They probably haven't had that many deeper relationships because they've never really opened their shell that much. You want your character to be very outgoing. They've probably had a few deeper relationships than average for that age range, because that brought them out of their shell more. Knowing all of these things about the character is extremely helpful in understanding their decision-making process, how they're going to react to our inciting incident, the initial conflict that we introduced into the story. It gives us a lot of tools to work with as we're building the character, as we're building the story. But I do want to stress that you don't have to have all of these things like nailed down to a T. It is just, as you go along and you're creating this character, as you're finding out who they are, you add things in. It's important to just remember those 5 things are going to be the major components in crafting a character. In the comments down below, let me know how you create your main character. I'd love to hear it. Till next time, happy writing, happy reading.